In my last 2600 video, I took a look at every game in my physical collection. Now I'd like to give some other games a spotlight. The first category of the day is arcade. Okay, maybe there's a better word for these. Most 2600 games could fit into the arcade category. Other games fit well into their categories, like shooters, paddle games, two-player games. These are not those. Now do consider, today's list is like a grab bag. There are both excellent and terrible games in here. Feel free to skip between them at your leisure, because while one might look like a snooze fest, I'm sure everyone would find at least one of these games quite fun to play. On that note, let's get into it. Berzerk.
You can't play Berzerk at home. Now you can. Atari. It's Berzerk.
I always love to see that commercial. What a fun grandma she must have been. Atari's Berzerk does a pretty good job at replicating the arcade classic in a minimized format. I actually prefer how the player movement feels in this version. So the story goes, you're the last survivor on a mission to planet Mazion. There are hostile robots called Auto-Mazions created by the merciless evil Otto. Otto himself never appears in the default game mode. You'll have to either destroy the Auto-Mazions with your laser gun, or completely avoid them by moving into the next maze. Of course, then you're not getting points, and that's kinda the point. This process continues until you run out of lives. Stay away from those walls if you don't want to get electrocuted. The Auto-Mazions didn't seem to get the memo, as you can often find them walking directly into it. As you continue through the maze, Auto-Mazions become increasingly hostile with faster movement and projectiles. Berzerk is a lot of fun, but there are numerous enhancement hacks for the game out there now, including one that adds the arcade's voice samples, and that makes the original cartridge feel a bit obsolete by comparison. Dodge 'em. Inspired by the head-on arcade game by Sega, in Dodge 'em you have to collect all the dots on the map without colliding with the other car. Much easier said than done as the computer opponent reacts quickly to each lane change you make. This is a very difficult game and I can imagine most giving up within a minute. You can speed up at any time with the button, which adds a layer of strategy. By determining how close the enemy is to a lane change, you can adjust your speed to prevent giving them the chance to collide. As the other car follows you, bait them into a certain empty lane in order to free the lane that you need to complete. It all happens so fast though, so you're gonna need good reflexes. On the third wave there are 2 enemy cars which drive slower. I was surprised to see that as I'm not sure if I've ever gotten this far before. Donkey Kong. This is one of the games that I grew up with, and by having zero experience with the arcade game, there was some fun to be had in trying to figure out how everything worked. Climb the ladders to reach the princess above while dodging incoming barrels. The second wave has you breaking holes in the floor to collapse the screen, trapping Donkey Kong. You wouldn't know that, however, as there's no animation for it in this version of the game. Instead, you're sent back to the first wave where you can then repeat the game for a higher score. You can collect a hammer to destroy obstacles in your path, but I encourage against it because you'll be stuck holding it for 8 seconds without the ability to jump. Is there any reason to recommend 2600 Donkey Kong? Not really, no. Anyone that plays the ColecoVision version of Donkey Kong, which was released only 1 month later, will no doubt prefer that version of it, even with the less desired controller. I'll end this game's discussion with a picture of the Intellivision cover. By today's standards, that's a pretty humorous depiction of Mario. Oh, how the times have changed. Fast food. As the manual reads, burgers, fries, shakes, pizza, and more are flying at sub-gastronomical speeds. The higher the calorie count, the better your score. The more you consume, the faster the food flies. Uh-oh, you're getting fatter. So what's the challenge? You might have noticed the eggplants flying across the screen. Healthy food? No way, that's where the line is drawn. Collect 6 and you'll let out a huge burp. Game over. That's really all there is to this. Gotta love the simplicity and hilarity of this concept. My only negative, which isn't strong, is that the mouth looks a little bit weird. You might think it's going for a Pac-Man thing, but considering the pixels merge at the end of its chomp, I think it's actually meant to be a pair of flapping lips. Jawbreaker. You're in a candy factory filled with candy bars and smiling faces who enter left or right and exit via sliding doors. So the factory workers are trying to stop you? Maybe? It doesn't elaborate. But it does say that you can pick up a vitamin pill occasionally to have the temporary strength to munch the smiling friends. I mean smiling faces. Am I a happy child or a giant shredding machine? There are openings between the maze that you can slide into to avoid incoming faces, which ends up becoming essential after a few waves. Complete a wave, and you get a fun teeth-brushing animation. This game's a lot of fun. My only complaint is that it doesn't always feel fair. Sometimes a face can appear just as you've reached the end of a row, with no way to predict it. The only potential strategy that I can think of is to avoid lanes with an existing smiley, but that would just make the game feel tedious. Beyond that though, this is a game I recommend. Junior Pac-Man. I've never played this version of Pac-Man before. Been told it's the best one on 2600. I can see why people say that. It has a full scrolling screen and faster gameplay than any of the others. Pretty difficult too, and I'll no doubt have fun trying to best my score. For the first couple times anyways. It takes a while to clear a stage, with the first taking me 2.5 minutes. The color scheme of this first stage also isn't as visually interesting as the others. Of course, that could just be an opinion. I'm not sure if I like this more than Miss Pac-Man on the system. I think I'd need to play it a couple more times to make that verdict. I talked about Miss Pac-Man last time, but it has now occurred to me that I haven't talked about Pac-Man. One of the largest talking points for the 2600, hugely contributing to the video game market crash. It looks nothing like the original. The sound is awful and the colors are all wrong. I mean, at least Pac-Man's yellow. The whole time he faces either left or right, just hovering up and down. There's also something off regarding its hitbox. I'll turn around with a pellet in his mouth only to find that I've missed it somehow. The ghosts flicker a lot and it can be hard to see them. Although I'm not sure if that's the problem or it's the bright blue background causing them to not stick out very much. You can slide across the screen vertically in this version, not horizontally like the arcade original. Feels weird. I guess you could sum it up like that. Pac-Man on the 2600 feels weird and in a very bad way. I used to be somewhat apologetic over this port, but I don't even understand why anymore. Probably because I've since better explored the 2600 library and now realize how unacceptable this is. Rabbit Transit. This game requires the StarPath Supercharger add-on, which multiplied the 2600's 128 bytes of RAM by 49, resulting in 6,272 bytes. The specialized cartridge plugs into your Atari, and then you plug it into the headphone jack of any cassette player. Plop in your Supercharger game cassette, hit play on the player, wait for the loud loading sequence to complete, and there you go. What can you expect from Supercharger games? Better graphics, generally. More on-screen text, more sound, sometimes. Big shout out to Brad D for uploading footage of this whole process. It's probably obvious that I don't own a Supercharger. Luckily, the Atari Harmony cartridge I own can emulate the RAM expansion, making the game ROMs fully playable. So how about Rabbit Transit? It's like a mix between Q*bert and Activision's Frostbite. It begins with a very easy game of Frogger that you only see for a few seconds. Jump on the turtle below to take you to the mysterious meadow, where you have to hop on ledges to change them to the magic color. No, doesn't elaborate. Avoid who's referred to as the heartless man above as he drops rocks on you. Complete the stage and you'll move on to find your bunny partner to start your bunny family. The whole time you'll be listening to a 2600 rendition of London Bridge, which is kind of annoying, but technically impressive, I guess. Rabbit Transit is, in my opinion, a bit repetitive. By no means is it a bad game, I think it looks good, but I rarely find myself replaying it. Stampede. Right, this game was in my Activision 2600 console library, and I'm giving it a redo because I didn't quite get it at the time. So you're herding cattle with your lasso, and the idea is to not let any cattle pass you. It only takes 3 for the game to end, making it quite challenging. You can bump the cattle forward by running into them, but the Black Angus won't move at all, so that becomes a priority when it shows up. Each different color of cattle represents a different point value and speed. The slowest of them should be your lowest priority. In fact, you should actively avoid them until they get too close, because your attention is best saved for the faster cattle that can suddenly appear on the other side of the screen. Juggling all of this at once can become a fairly hectic gameplay experience. So what do I think of this game now after fully understanding it? Not strongly. I mean, I could play this a couple of times without getting bored, but it is quite repetitive. Nonetheless, I do like the idea and appreciate the game for trying something different. Taz. You're no doubt familiar with the character. There's no story here. Taz is just hungry and going around eating whatever he can find. Hamburgers, root beer, ice cream. The idea is to dodge the dynamite sticks, of which there are many. Eat as many as the lives you have shown below, and the game is over. You would probably think this game is repetitive. I thought so too until I finished the Fudgesicle wave, where you then enter Crazed Wave, which isn't really a wave, the entire game forthcoming speeds up. Now the food will fly around fast as the Tasmanian Devil himself. It's actually pretty fun, but it took me 3.5 minutes to get here. I'd go as far as to say this is a good game if it got to the point quicker, even if it just looped after a certain point. That would have been better than never reaching the surprise food wave as referenced in the manual. So yeah, I don't recommend this game, but I can't say I regret playing it. It's just not something I would ever buy. Now let's twist things up some more with a look at two-player cooperative games. Armor Ambush. You and player 2 each get 25 tanks, each with 3 hit points. Whoever destroys the other's loadout of tanks first wins. Each map is randomly generated with a mix of plains, shrubbery, buildings, rivers, and paved roads. The surface type determines how fast or slow your tank will move, with paved roads offering the highest speed. Each player has 2 available tanks on the map, with your currently controlled tank having the most detail. You can switch between them at any time by pressing down on the joystick. Be sure to leave your other tank in a safe spot first, preferably behind a building, so the other player can't easily access it. Armor Ambush is a 2-player game only with no computer AI for solo play. This game might sound pretty fun, however turning your tank is a bit slow and will require patience from both players. Of course, these are also tank controls, not everyone's favorite. From my experience with others, reactions are mixed. Some have enjoyed it, some find it frustrating. I think it's an alright game, and undeniably impressive how the maps are randomly generated. Still, I don't think anyone today would ever say, "Man, I can't wait to play Armor Ambush again." Basketball. This one has a computer opponent, but of course you can also have a second player take their spot. Games last for 4 minutes. Whoever scores the most wins. In order to score, position yourself and hold the button. You'll alternate between a short, easy shot and a high arching shot. The other player can jump at the goal to prevent it if they're lucky. I've always heard that stealing the ball is tricky. I did try, but I don't think either of us managed to figure that out. The manual implies that it takes some practice. Fair enough. Let's be honest, there's only one button here. It's funny to look at this and realize how far we've come with sports games. This is as rudimentary as it gets. If it weren't for my dad owning a copy, I probably wouldn't have ever played this. The coolest thing about Atari Basketball is that you can see 2 guys playing it in the movie Airplane. M.A.D, which stands for Missile Attack and Defense. Waves of attack missiles are being sent towards your future civilization's energy supply. Use your ground-based photon cannon to aim and shoot at those missiles. Aiming is sporadic, as the position of your nipple cannon is the only way to determine where your shots will end up. In single play, it leaves much to be desired. In versus mode, however, players will alternate between the cannon and a cursor that lets one player selectively drop the missiles. In a way, this makes the sporadic aiming system logical, as a means of balancing the game for both players. Similarly, the missiles dropped will only destroy their target if lined up perfectly. Yes, even if the missile had visibly reached its target. It is strange, and maybe they could have done something different here, but at the very least, the game does feel balanced. Ultimately, M.A.D is an enjoyable game that I would recommend. Kind of for its single player, but definitely for multiplayer. Video Olympics. Oh, this is a big one. It's also known as Pong Sports. Basically the 2600's Pong equivalent, but goes above and beyond the original game. Just by flicking through the select screen, you can see how many unique variations there are. 50, in fact. A lot of weird, abstract ones too, but it's all explained in the manual. The first mode is Robot Pong, where you can play against a CPU. I think this is the only single-player game here, but I could be wrong. We tried 7 of the noteworthy game modes. First was Standard Pong. All you have to do is get the ball past your opponent using your special paddle set of controllers sold separately. Yes, the paddles. These give you ultra-smooth movement, but only in 2 directions. Think of it like the wheel of your car. Hold the button during a hit and you'll speed up the ball. Once you're both familiar with the paddle's movements, it can become a hectic game, and fast. There are a few other strategies that I haven't mastered yet, which are listed in the manual for reference. The second game we tried was soccer. Each player has 2 paddles to control, with each moving equally in different spaces on the screen. Like Pong before, get the ball past your opponent's paddle, but you'll have to aim within the goal. Otherwise, it'll bounce back. This game is called Foos Pong, with the same dual paddle setup, but now they're in a row. There are also stationary paddles, indicated by their horizontal lines. With so many hits going on, it ends up feeling like a 2-player game of pinball. This one is hockey. Get the puck into your opponent's goal. It's that simple. The puck will bounce all over the rink, which is similar enough to real hockey, I guess. I found the puck can randomly speed up at times, which ranks up the intensity as the pitch continues to increase. Then there's Quadra Pong. From my understanding, it requires 2 sets of paddle controllers, and the other 2 players would show up on the left and right. 4-player paddle action sounds fun with the right people. There's a sentence I won't say twice. In any case, what's often referred to as the best 4-player experience on Atari is from Warlords. Figured I should give it a shout out, but don't have the means of properly demonstrating it today.
I hate when this happens. What?
I killed the ball.
Here's volleyball. The manual says that you can play it with up to 4 people. Just don't lose the ball on your side and don't let it touch the net, else your opponent gets a point. So that makes this the first game that uses actual gravity. You can hold the button to raise the paddle, letting you do a high shot, I guess. But there's no momentum to your paddle's movement, it's either in position 1 or position 2. So in regards to giving the ball a strong hit, well, that concept doesn't really exist here. Should you swap places expecting such to happen, you might find it falling through the ground instead. Still pretty fun though. The last one I tried was basketball. Like volleyball, you can raise your paddle while holding the button. By any means possible, get your ball into the opponent's net. Unlike in real basketball, the ball will bounce infinitely around the court. Off the walls, across the net, hell, I wouldn't be surprised if it touched the ceiling. I like that there's this one game in the collection with gameplay beyond getting the ball across the other side of the screen. Despite all confusions, the unique interpretations of these sports on limited technology is fascinating. I know this footage might not make the game look super interesting, but I do have a friend that lived close by years ago, and we'd occasionally play using that Atari paddle plug and play. You know, the one that comes with the second paddle. If you're looking for a cheap and easy way to experience this today, that would be my personal suggestion. However, Atari does sell brand new paddles on their website now, which is pretty wild when you think about it. So if you have the hardware to use these, that's probably your best choice. Seeing as how we've just talked paddle games, let's run through the others in this list. Circus Atari. You play as 2 clowns at the circus. Using a teeter-totter, align yourself with the first jumping clown to bounce back and forth, popping as many balloons above as you can. When you finish a row, a new row appears. It's funny to me how this is basically a suicide mission. Once the guy jumps on, you're both screwed. I always wanted to like this game. I think the animation is funny. For me, its problem is how there's no true feeling of accomplishment. Hooray, I completed another row of balloons. Oh look, another one. As fun as the teeter-totter gimmick is, it's not enough to recommend the game. Eggomania. So the story goes, some dumb turkey is dropping its eggs on a bear. The bear will catch the eggs in his hat to shortly after throw back at the turkey. Try to land a shot to make that turkey pay. Except you only get 100 points for it, which takes only moments to achieve by collecting eggs. So that kinda sucks. If you run out of eggs to throw, the game continues. If you do hit the turkey, the game still continues. Missing an egg results in a layer of yolk covering the bear below, and if he gets entirely covered, the game ends. Eggomania starts easy and progressively picks up speed, though not as quickly as Activision's Kaboom, which this was no doubt taking inspiration from. But I actually like this game better than Kaboom. Being able to shoot the turkey gives the game that little extra variety that really helps its presentation. The music and sound effects also impress. Good stuff for the 2600, almost feels like an old cartoon. Most paddle games are based on competitive sports, but Eggomania is a full single-player game that rivals other non-paddle 2600 games. It's just not something you see very often. I recommend this one, it's a lot of fun. Solar Storm, another excellent single-player game with the paddle controller. I've talked about it before in my Imagic console library. However, that was emulation, and now having played the real deal, I regret what I previously said. This game is awesome. The reason for your mission is to prevent the planet below from overheating. I think that's what the waves at the bottom are meant to represent. The bars on the left and right indicate how close your planet is to overheating, which I never got close to in this playthrough. There are 2 ways to lose. The planet overheats, or you run out of lives. I usually run out of lives first. All kinds of deltoid ships are attacking your craft and presumably the planet below. The manual doesn't seem to reveal what you did to piss them off so much. Beware of the schizoids that quickly zigzag towards your planet. Destroy them and all other enemies on screen will vanish. Kind of like the bandit bombers from another Imagic game, Atlantis. After some waves of enemies, fragments of a nearby sun that just went supernova come flying in. That surely won't be good for your planet. Better destroy them before they pass the screen. Every so often there's a sort of intermission where you can shoot nearby ships for a limited time. Destroy 5 for an extra life. This part's a bit weird because it seems to use a joystick setup, but you're using paddles. Hard to get used to. I love the menacing sound effects in this game, and shooting your laser cannon while the screen flashes red is a very cool effect. The graphics are well presented too. Like your craft, for example, its thrusters are fully animated. That's uncommon to see for a player-controlled entity on 2600. The one complaint I have about Solar Storm is how commonly you'll die from ships that appear and instantly shoot your craft before you can even react to their existence. Otherwise, this game is great, and my favorite of the paddle selection. I would own a copy myself if it wasn't so rare. Well, we might as well stay consistent and continue with the shooter genre. Astroblast. You can play this with a joystick or paddle. Alright, so I guess we have one more paddle game to cover. In Astroblast, you blast asteroids, which lower your score as they drop to the surface. Try to eliminate as many as you can to keep that score going up instead of down. This one I always find in bins full of $1 Atari games. You know, not everyone has the paddle controllers, also the game kinda stinks. Okay, it's just come to my attention that people generally like this game. Figure I should mention that this is a near-carbon copy of the earlier Intellivision game Astro Smash, which one may consider is a bit worse because Astroblast is a much faster-paced game. Also, no matter what Atari controller you use, it'll be better than the Intellivision disc. If this really looks like fun, then give it a try, I guess. I wouldn't personally recommend it. Centipede. Look at that fancy title screen. So you play as an elf with a giant mushroom garden. A bunch of bugs are coming around spoiling your prized mushroom garden. One of the elves finds a magic stick and starts zapping them all. And there's your story. The centipede will travel down the screen horizontally, switching directions when it touches a mushroom. You can shoot it into numerous pieces, and while you do, they turn into new mushrooms, further complicating the playfield. Although if you shoot one enough times, it'll disappear. If there's a large volume of mushrooms, that centipede could head straight for you in a matter of seconds. Luckily, you have some degree of free control, so hopping over and around them as they approach is a necessary tactic. Be aware of a few other threats that pop up, like the spiders that are almost always on screen. If you collide with an enemy, the mushrooms left are counted and contribute to your score for bonus points. Sometimes you have to sit and think, how did they come up with all this? Centipede is a very involved game, and you can't deny the creativity that went into sculpting its gameplay. While this is an arcade port, it's a bloody good one. Much better with the Atari trackball, no doubt, which I should have mentioned in my last video because it also works for Missile Command. I guess there's no reason to play this over the arcade original these days, but for its time you can't really complain. Communist Mutants from Space. This is another game for the Starpath Supercharger. The ruler of the planet known as Ruski. Oh god. Well, they've launched an attack. The mother creature, so it's called, transforms captured slaves from peaceful planets and converts them into communist mutants that you'll have to shoot. Destroying the mutants themselves won't do much until the mother's eliminated, as it consistently introduces more enemies to shoot. So try to get a shot to slip through the crowd, eliminate the mother, and then handle the rest. When you first power on the game, you'll see a variety of options to choose from, so no need to flick any switches on the console itself. I'm shocked how many variations you can make. I ended up trying difficulty 5 with all options set to yes. There's a shield you can activate once per wave by pressing down, much like Phoenix. A time warp mechanic that slows down time by pressing up. Penetrating fire option where your missiles destroy everything in its path. And guided fire where you can aim your missiles after shooting, like Eggomania. This was a lot better than the default settings, which even then was still fun to play. Definitely recommend this one. Fantastic Voyage. So this is sort of based on a movie of the same name that I haven't seen. Just wanted to mention that this game uses the TV color mode switch as a pause button. That's interesting. Fantastic Voyage is a testament to not throwing away your manual. Might not be able to figure this out without one. Basically, you're a ship that's been injected into a sick patient's bloodstream. You have to try to get rid of all the viruses. Much like Vanguard, there are changing waves that affect the playing condition. For example, during one of the waves, the artery narrows, making it harder to navigate. There are good, thorough explanations for this game out there, and I would suggest the No Swear Gamer video, but to summarize, there are some targets you'll want to shoot and others that you should leave be for the patient's safety. Some obstacles you'll want to avoid altogether, then for certain other targets, allowing them to pass through the bottom will increase the patient's heart rate. If the heart rate gets too high, they'll die, and your ship goes with them. So what's the ultimate goal here? You're supposed to reach an eventual blood clot and shoot it 15 or so times to destroy it. Then you move on to the next patient. The game doesn't immediately loop, with the next patient having a unique wave of enemies. sometimes a mix of several threats that you've encountered before. This was my first time playing Fantastic Voyage, and my total playtime before failure was roughly 10 minutes. I enjoyed the entire session of it. This is a well-executed game. I'm just not sure how often I'd want to replay it because of how long a full game can take. Millipede. Same story as Centipede pretty much, but the threat has expanded. I guess you could call it a traditional sequel. Aw, no wacky title screen this time? Millipede plays a lot faster than Centipede. Actually, in my opinion, it's a bit too chaotic. Bugs are flying all over the place and it gets hard to keep your attention on any one thing, let alone the mission objective Millipede above. Adding bombs to the playfield was a cool idea, though with how fast everything moves, it's hard to prepare for the positioning of that. I have a feeling this game would be much improved with the Atari trackball. When it comes to joystick gaming, I prefer the flow of Centipede. My guess is not many have even played this port to begin with. I see Centipede cartridges every so often, but Millipede isn't one that I'd consider a common find. SpaceMaster X-7. This one is also based on a film I haven't seen, and is likely inspired by the arcade game Star Castle. Your mission is to destroy as many Hyperion military bases as possible using your assault ship. It'll take a couple shots to pull off. The base is surrounded by a shield, which has a few gaps that you can either shoot through, or enter yourself for a risky but simple takedown. Well, I say risky, but it takes quite some time for the challenge to ramp up, and there don't seem to be any alternate difficulties to start with. Still, once it all gets up to speed, it's a very fun game, emphasized by the chaotic sound effects. This was my first time playing SpaceMaster X-7, and I've since added its title to my high score book. Space Raid. I only just discovered this. It's pretty much a Megamania bootleg with different graphics and sound. Some neat animations they've made here. None of that is the reason I'm bringing it up though. Check this out. The game's art is the exact same as was used for my Zeller's Time Warp bootleg. Said cover art that is still yet to be sourced. I guess it was some kind of stock art from the time? Hold on a second, look at this! The Taiwan Cooper bootleg of River Raid uses the equally mysterious art as Zeller's Laser Volley. A part of me wonders if we'll ever actually find the source. Still, really cool to see the full uncropped image. You know, this picture actually makes perfect sense for River Raid. No way, I love Demon Attack! Oh yeah, what about Space Raid? Well, I mean, not much to say about it. I had to emulate this one because it's a PAL region game. If you've played Megamania enough times, you might want to try this. Otherwise, meh. Turmoil. Here we have another game that lets you pause it with the TV color mode switch. Maybe this was a more common practice than I thought. The goal of the game is to move your ship vertically, holding fire to do as much collective damage within the rows of enemies as possible. Just be aware of certain icons like the flashing prize that'll turn into a surprise if you don't pick it up fast enough. Then you're really in for trouble. And yes, you can travel along the horizontal line, but other than for collecting prizes, I don't think there's any reason to do that. This is one of those games where you can't really tell what's going on just by looking at it. Everything's weird and abstract with nothing beyond the player's ship sticking out. You might be asking why that matters. I guess it doesn't, but it makes the game feel directionless, and boy is it. There was no surprise to find that the manual doesn't have a real story for this one. You're really just shooting alien spacecraft for the heck of it. Turmoil has a few specific gimmicks to look out for, like the arrow that'll turn into a tank if you let it pass the screen. None of these gimmicks you seemingly need to focus on, beyond the prize item. On the fourth wave, the rows disappear completely, which you might think makes it more challenging, but not really. I can't say I'm a fan of Turmoil. I know there are a lot of Atari fans that like it, and I wouldn't say it's a terrible game, but it's not quite clicking for me. And those were our 25 games for the day. Many of the single-player games mentioned technically have two-player modes, but not simultaneously. Take-turns style gameplay was not the future of multiplayer gaming, and it wasn't too long after the 2600 where this whole concept died out. I don't think anyone really cares to do this anymore. You might as well just play by yourself. Now, you might be wondering how I keep track of my Atari 2600 high scores. I briefed on this a little last time, but this is the full system I have. Game name, system, I use this book for other consoles too, score, mode, difficulty, and date of score. I put a star next to my best score, with an arrow pointing down if the score has since been beaten. So far I've used this template for every 2600 game except Communist Mutants from Space, because after all that one does have a variety of different options. So yeah, consider that before writing everything in, or regret later. You see the second star on the bottom score? I put an extra star for every following mode that isn't using the default setup. So if I start running the game with another set of options, it won't get confused with the default. Unrelated, but I recently had a conversation with an experienced pre-NES era gamer. They suggested to me that promoting Atari 2600 games as fun is actually misleading. To summarize their POV as I understood it, modern enjoyment of the 2600 is based on nostalgia, not the quality of the games. They've aged to the point of irrelevance and have very little value to begin with. There's a reason the market crashed and why cartridges only sell for $1. The grand majority of people don't want to play 50-year-old games with bad graphics, sound, and controls. Now, while I do agree that this is a niche group, I don't believe that nostalgia is the sole reason for its modern presence. I still feel the excitement from people who see the weather changing in Enduro, and Lasergates always manages to turn heads. Everyone loves Hero, Dragonfire, and many others. If you've already got the setup going, throwing in a cartridge to play a quick game from time to time is actually fun. At least for me. If you're familiar with the minigame series WarioWare, a lot of 2600 games feel like they could be from those compilations. You're just playing them for a bit longer than usual. Personally, I like how vivid and colorful 2600 games are, with simple shapes that leave an aura of mystery to their interpretation. I also love to see what developers can pull off on this limited hardware. From what I've read online, many share in that admiration. The artistic limitations exhibit creativity. 2600 games are also instant play experiences without any intros or unskippable storylines. It's often mentioned that the system is home to many unique fast-action shooters, which are actually my personal favorites. Another said that they enjoy collecting high scores, and I do as well. Some believe certain games are superior to their arcade counterparts. One person referred to Space Invaders as an example. A comment that I liked was, "Good games are good games. Graphics become secondary. That's how you know something is a timeless classic." Although most of you watching right now probably like Atari games, to those that don't, I understand. My belief is that an individual's preference plays a really big role here, like not how everyone shares the same taste in genres. Regardless of all that, today's list is not a summation of the best games that you can find. There's a lot of good games in my last part, and I've mostly refrained from including Activision or Imagic games as I've already covered them. So if you're looking for more 2600 breakdowns, that's where you can find them. But that's all you're going to hear from me this time, so thanks for watching everyone, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.
Yeah!